happened to China's uncontrolled rocket? Sure, you will have wondered what happened to the China rocket, which gone out of control and gender controversy around the world. Most people have completely forgotten the Chinese rocket, which threatened to land in Latin American countries such as Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, Brazil and 19 other countries that were on alert for the possible fall of the rocket. As we will remember, on April 29th, we saw how China had launched the Long March 5B to put into orbit a section of the space station that country is building. It took off aboard the Long March 5B rocket from the Wenchang Launch Center, and is the latest success for a Chinese program that has fulfilled several of its growing ambitions in recent years. It was a main module that will house astronauts in the long term and is considered a great milestone in the Asian giant space race. Minutes after takeoff, the protective cover was opened to expose the Tianhe on top of the central part of the rocket with the characters, China Manned Space, inscribed on the outside. Several US and European tracking sites had been monitoring the re-entry of the rocket, but it had not been possible to determine whether it would disintegrate upon entry. The place where the possible remains would fall was not precisely known either. But what happened is that the Chinese Long March 5B rocket, which had caused so much expectation, finally disintegrated and fell at dawn on Sunday, May 8th, as reported by the Chinese Space Authority. The debris that withstood the brutal friction with the atmosphere upon re-entering the land had collided with the sea near India and Sri Lanka. The rocket, which took off on April 28, has been falling uncontrollably since it fulfilled its mission to put the future Chinese space station, Tianhe, into orbit. In recent days, all space object tracking organisms were observing in detail the evolution of its fall to try to indicate which would be the trajectory and the most probable moment when it would reach the surface of the planet. Eventually, most of the remains have disintegrated upon entering the atmosphere, and those that remain have sunk into the ocean. Chinese authorities and state media confirmed that parts of the rocket entered the Earth's atmosphere at 10:24 a.m. on Sunday Beijing time, over the Arabian Peninsula. Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, also referred to the Chinese rocket and its crash, and reported that its debris fell into the Indian Ocean. And one of the main concerns of the aerospace authorities of several countries of the world was that the Long March 5B could fall in inhabited places. A re-entry into the ocean was statistically always the most likely, tweeted Jonathan McDowell, an expert at the Harvard University Center for Astrophysics, who has been monitoring the rocket crash. The mission of the Long March 5B. On April 29th, China used the rocket to put part of its space station into orbit. The space station of the Asian giant will be assembled from several modules that will be sent at different times. China hopes to have it fully operational by the end of 2022. To have its space station ready on schedule, China set a tight schedule of 11 launches for the next 2 years. The T-shaped station is intended to be operational for 10 years, and its life can be extended to 15 years with proper repair and maintenance, according to the China Academy of Space Technology. It is expected to be the only operational station in orbit open to foreign partners, following the retirement of the International Space Station. NASA launches hard critical against China. NASA's chief executive officer, Bill Nelson, issued a statement in which he harshly criticized China's management of these rockets. It is clear that China is not complying with responsible standards with respect to its space debris. It is critical that China and all nations and commercial entities with space travel act responsibly and transparently in space to ensure the security, stability and long-term sustainability of outer space activities. Before this embarrassing incident, the Asian giant space station received harsh criticism. The Chinese Space Agency has received much criticism for its deliberate carelessness in managing these rockets. Although there is no international regulation to be governed by, the usual practice is to design control systems for re-entry into the ground, such as propellants that allow establishing a trajectory for objects of more than 5 tons, and the Long March 5B weighed more than 20 tons. What can happen if it falls in inhabited places? There is only one certainty: that the object is in an inclined orbit of 41 degrees with respect to the Earth's equator. So it can only fall in the strip between latitudes 41 of the northern hemisphere and southern, which includes, for example, a good part of Latin America, southern Europe and Africa. But as Beijing states, the most likely thing is that the remains of the rocket fall into the sea, which occupies 70% of the planet, or in a desert area. The probability of an impact in an inhabited area is negligible, certainly less than 1 million. Assures the person in charge of the bat. Even if the debris fell on houses, the speed of the impact would be relatively low, about 200 kilometers per hour. Nothing to do with the impact of a meteorite, 36,000 kilometers per hour. Instead, for a person, the impact could be fatal, according to Delaphi. Have there been errors like this? Unfortunately, yes. It happened in May 2020. China launched a twin rocket to the east. And part of his remains and some large ones fell on the Ivory Coast, causing complaints from the United States. In 2020, the wreckage of another long-marching rocket hit several villages on the Ivory Coast, causing damage, but without leaving any injuries. According to NASA figures, from January 2020, there are about 20,000 objects in Earth orbit with sizes greater than 10 centimeters, which are monitored by radars and telescopes. In 60 years of spaceflight, there have been some 6,000 uncontrolled entries into the Earth of large man-made objects, and only reached one person without hurting them. According to the expert of the bat, Sting Lemons, as we see China, it has already had a history before, and it has been for the same reason with trips to the moon. Many trips they made were successful, but on some occasions they put some countries in danger, generating criticism for his space agency. Don't forget to subscribe to receive more content. See you in the next video.